Warning: the material discussed in this show may be sensitive or a trigger for some listeners. Strong language and topics are discussed. We talk with active duty service members and practice OPSEC at all times. You have been warned.
The Bipolar DM, Jason Cottom. His show talks about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. Check us out right here on Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, also on WLFE-DV.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. So take a seat, sit back, and get ready for the Bipolar DM.
Hey, welcome to the Bipolar DM Show. This is your host, Jason. This is a show about Dungeons and Dragons, indie writing, and living with a mental illness, in particular bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, and major depression, among other diagnoses. If you want to get a hold of us, you can get a message us right below, or if you can also, you can email us at thebipolardm@gmail.com. Or you can visit my webpage, www.thebipolardm.com. There you'll find previous episodes of my podcast, links to my live show and previous episodes of that, as well as resources on indie writing, Dungeons and Dragons, and mental health. If you are a fan of Facebook and would like to follow us on Facebook, we do have a fan page. The handle is @BipolarDM. This is a little bit more up-to-date than our web pages, just because it's an easy platform for me to post videos, articles, and other resources and items from my phone or tablet, and sometimes even my laptop. And so that's where we try to do most of our communication with our audiences, through there. Now, if you are a fan of the show and would like to join our group page, it is called the Bipolar DM Nation. First, you got to like the Bipolar DM Show's Facebook page in order for us to be considered to enter into the group page. But all you have to do in order to get into the group page is agree to one rule and one rule only, and that is to respect everyone. As long as you're able to respect other people and not be a jerk about anything, we won't have to have 10 pages of rules in order for somebody to get in through the front door. Also, let you guys know, everybody know, we do have merchandise available. We have T-shirts and buttons and stickers now, as well as, there we go. So we got T-shirts, buttons, and stickers. Prices start at $2 for the stickers. It is $5 for the buttons and the T-shirts, the Bipolar DM T-shirt and the I Hate Bipolar, It's Awesome T-shirt. Those are $20 each, and plus shipping. And this money goes straight towards the Bipolar DM Show. So this goes to help me purchase equipment, upgrade equipment. I also have to pay a lot of dues and fees in order to broadcast as well. This is not a free production, so it actually does cost money to produce this. If you'd like to help offset that as far as a monthly support, we do have a Patreon page as well. And if you go to patreon.com/thebipolardm, you will find my Patreon page. We have goodies available at each support tier, starting with stickers at the $5 tier, going on up to T-shirts at $20 a month. When you support me, you help support this show and everything that we do as far as talking about Dungeons and Dragons and indie writing, and most especially mental health and mental illness. Okay. Let's see. That's kind of all I got for introductions right now. Now we were going to have a guest on the show, but unfortunately that fell through. So we kind of going with Plan B here. Just kind of do a little bit of a talk, and then I have a broadcast a interview I had done previously with Dr. Anthony Bean with Geek Therapeutics. I previously was not able to put this on air just because of the nature of the equipment that I had. I was working with an iPad and Wi-Fi, and unfortunately, there's a lot of things I can't do on the iPad that I can do now with the laptop. And so we've been saving this one for an occasion like this, where we were without a guest, or if I was not able to broadcast this interview. So we'll be showing that in just a minute. And we're going to be talking about Geek Therapeutics, his company, as well as also how Dungeons and Dragons and geek culture is being used in a therapeutic manner. Okay. Kind of talk about my background. My geek background is, I've always been an odd one. I never had any friends, very, very few friends in my life, especially during high school. And it wasn't until I got into my junior year of high school that I found Dungeons and Dragons. And I had heard about the game back when I was in junior high, but had no way of getting a hold of it or learning how to play it or know anybody who did play it. And then they started carrying it in the Stars and Stripes bookstore, which is the bookstore for the military, or it was the bookstore for the military on military bases overseas. And so Stars and Stripes started carrying Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. And so I went and bought the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, as well as the 3-ring binder Monsters Compendium that had all the monsters in it. And from there, I began to learn, and I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. I put an ad in the paper on the local base. At the time, I was living in Japan. My dad was stationed at Naval Air Facility at Sugi, and it was our second tour of duty there in Atsugi. And I put a local ad in the paper on base and got a couple of hits, got a one hit really, with a guy who he was 18. He'd already graduated from high school over stateside, but came over as a dependent with his mother. And he had a friend who also was 18, graduated already. And so those two guys became some of my closest friends as we played Dungeons and Dragons together. The three of us, sometimes bringing in other people, but most of the time it was just the three of us. And I played until I got to college, and then I wasn't able to take it with me, so it remained back with my parents' stuff. And I kind of fell out of the game for about a decade or two. I tried playing a little bit when I was in the Army, back at Walter Reed, but the guys I was with, they weren't really interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons more than they were about killing everything and breaking things. And so I didn't get back into Dungeons and Dragons until I started watching Critical Role, the Twitch TV show in which a bunch of nerdy-ass voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's led by Matt Mercer, who's the Dungeon Master. And for 4 hours an episode each week, they would play Dungeons and Dragons. And this was a game that was already going on in their home for 3 years prior. And so we actually were jumping in mid-campaign. And so, but it was just amazing seeing how Dungeons and Dragons was being played, especially this new 5th edition. And I got into Pathfinder 3.5 because I wasn't quite sure yet about 5th edition was brand new. I didn't really know about getting into it, but I went ahead and got into 3.5 or Pathfinder actually, and started playing that for a bit. And then I went ahead and after reading up on the rules and stuff like that and the reviews, I went ahead and decided to go ahead and make this transition over to 5th edition. And I actually absolutely love 5th edition. It is a great edition to play, especially for new players who who have not played Dungeons and Dragons before or haven't played in years and years and years. It focuses a lot more on the playing the game as far as the improv and the character developments and role playing more than the miniatures in the warfare and combat. So it's a marked shift from there, but they also have streamlined combat and made it a lot simpler too, so you don't have complex formulas or tables that you have to use in order to figure out if you hit something. It's just a roll of a d20 and plus or minus some numbers, and then you find out whether or not you hit something. or miss completely. And so playing with Dungeons and Dragons, has been a really great means of therapy for me as well, because it allows me to break away from reality for 1, 2, sometimes 3 hours, and to indulge into a fantasy world where I'm in control of my emotions, I'm in control of my mental health, and my character and how I play them, or the world that I create as a dungeon master, is one that's is where I can get a break from this all. So yeah, that's kind of what Dungeons and Dragons has been for me. It has been a great game to break away from reality, to work through some issues, to practice coping skills in a very safe environment as well. And so I'm really looking forward to learning more through Geek Therapeutics about how to use Dungeons and Dragons in a therapeutic manner. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and go into the first part of our interview with Dr. Anthony Bean. And here we go. Bipolar DM Show. I am on the phone right now with Dr. Tony Bean with Geek Therapeutics. We had recorded this before, but due to some technical errors, mostly from me, we had to redo this. So really been looking forward to this interview, looking forward to doing it again just because it was such a great interview. Tony, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who are you?
Well, thank you for having me on here. I am Dr. Anthony Bean, and I basically run Geek Therapeutics, where we provide continuing education units. We, for pretty much all professionals in there, we're APA, NVCC accredited, and soon to be ACE, which is for social workers. So basically psychologists, counselors, master's level clinicians, and soon to be social workers. And what we do is we do all sorts of geeky things. We utilize those geek cultural artifacts to kind of help our population, aka our clients, become the best that they potentially can be.
So let's go ahead and let's talk first a little bit about your own geek background. You were obviously not jumping on the bandwagon. You're one of the OGs. So, tell us your journey of geekiness.
Well, it all started when I was no, I'm kidding. It basically, I've been playing very much a lot of video games since I was younger. When I was about 3 years old is when I can remember the first time picking up a Super Mario Brothers controller and getting that engaged. Where that kind of took me is all through a whole bunch of video games. So very steeped in the gamer culture, the good and the bad of it, and we utilize both of them. And then in high school, I got into LARPing and some D&D and some other stuff, which then continued on through my college years, where I ran a Dance Revolution club that created a community for people, geeks and nerds, to really kind of get what we call like their own geek therapy endeavor. Overall, to feel connected and be a part of some other stuff. Plus, you get free exercise and cultivate for a lot of the stuff that we did, which was great. Which leads me to obviously going to school and everything. I've been using it with clients for forever, over 10 years now. And all sorts of age ranges, everything from younger to older. And basically having a lot of fun, geeking out, but also bringing in a lot of those different types of cultural relevancies to understand who we are and how we can better ourselves and relate to one another in a cultural standpoint and what they can do to keep us helping us move forward.
Okay, so we've talked about your geekiness. Now let's talk about your professional background. You're not just some blow Joe that got your degree off of the internet. You're a real doctor, and this is a legit thing. That's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm what we call a licensed clinical psychologist, so the highest that you can kind of get in the clinical psychology field. And I basically run a 501c3 nonprofit in Texas called the Telos Project. I run Geek Therapeutics, and I have a private practice and also a publishing company where we basically publish all sorts of really cool geek cultural artifacts to really feel like there is a niche that people really need to get their voices out there. And so we have a lot of cool talent that's coming on board, but that professionalism is really where we're at. And I think that's what makes us more viable than a lot of people who, like you said, just, hey, I've got a degree and I'm going to do this and I'm doing some stuff. Like, no, our stuff is really evidence-based and research-focused, and that's why we have the APA accreditation and the other types of accreditation as well.
Okay, so and that leads right into my next question, which is, what led you to meld these two worlds together? I mean, it's an amazing thing, and you're blazing new trail is what you're doing too. And so you don't have anybody ahead of you saying, "Oh, I want to do that because such and such person did it." What was it that kind of led you into bringing these two worlds together?
Well, the thing that kind of led me the hardest into it is that when you were having a lot of difficulties connecting with clients, you start talking. They'll ask us questions as clinicians, like, "What do you do for fun? Like, what's happening?" Because they're guarded and that type of engagement is sometimes very low. And what that kind of entails in creating is what a lot of therapists tend to try to stay away from. Like, yeah, you don't really need to know a lot about me, but I'm usually a little bit more open with. Yeah, play video games, watch anime, read manga, do D&D, focus on a whole bunch of other stuff, and that's like, whoa, you do that, and then we get talking about that, and it turns out that they have a lot of geeky sides, and we would talk about a specific character in an anime or a type of video game that they like, whether it's an archetypal energy focused on a ranger activity, which is very much based on how they perceive themselves in the world and how they interact with others, versus maybe in the D&D character, a different type of wizard gnome that wants to not necessarily take over the world, but help someone. That is a different character synchronicity of what I would call it from who they are.
Awesome.
So it's really neat, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've had such great success with the program of the Therapeutic Game Master program. Is one, you get CEs for it, plus you get 36 hours of amazing training.
Actually, that's a perfect segue. Let's just talk about real quick the Therapeutic Game Master program. This is one of many programs that you guys have going on over at Geek Therapeutics, and let's go ahead and let's talk about that. What is a Therapeutic Game Master?
So a Therapeutic Game Master is an individual who basically leads role-playing games from intimate one-on-one sessions, which are also called duet play, all the way up to large groups, usually up to 6 people. And whether they are basically a first-time game master, or they're getting their feet wet, or they want to engage in it because they've had a lot of experience, the program is really set up heavily for that. And kind of gives them a rundown of D&D over 5 weeks, and then they also get introduced to 4 other systems that can be utilized as therapeutic tools. And so, like, say, for instance, we talk with them about how to do medical record documentation, how do we break stereotypes, use the ACT model, foundational session planning, character creation. And there's a lot of different aspects that people get in here that we think that what they need, and it's taken off. We're already in cohort 6 and 7. They're already starting to fill up.
Yeah, and I'm so excited about doing it this summer when I finish up with my certified geek specialist program. As soon as that one's tied up, I am so jumping on board this one. I already got some ideas lined up with doing Dungeons and Dragons with boots on the ground and over in the sandbox with veterans and stuff like that. And so it leads right into my next question, which is, how do you integrate this thing called Dungeons and Dragons with therapy?
So you whether you're running it in a unique one-on-one model or a group setting, you always have your basics kind of set up, what your goals are, your start, your middle, your finish. They're usually in sessions of 10 to 12 either needs to work on a little bit more, or what the individual needs to be happening, focusing on within their lives. So we really create and set up a bunch of different, the right way of kind of putting it, narrations of narrative therapy styles to really hone in on what's needed, how does it kind of engage our clients, and we literally bring them through the world with purposeful intent and put them in situations that we created to really help out with furthering what they need and what we have to engage them with to get them over that hump. Sometimes people need a little bit more help with social skills. Sometimes they need a little bit more help with anxiety, depression, trauma, or even just feeling like they belong. And that's really one of the things that brings us all kind of together.
Awesome. And we're going to go ahead and go to a break real quick, take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back with Dr. Anthony Bean with Tony, and we're going to talk about what's coming down the pipe with Geek Therapeutics and some of his other endeavors that he's working on. So go ahead and everybody just stand up tight as we go ahead and go to commercial.
Yeah, and so that's segment one of the interview. If you notice, the audio was off from the video. That's mostly because I was working on both an iPad and using Wi-Fi for the recording, so it threw off a lot on the broadcast quality. But so you can see quite a few improvements in our show since that was originally recorded several months ago, back in January. We're going to go ahead and go to commercial, like I said we were, and thank you again for tuning in, and here we go.
WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows. Search for your favorite shows like Where's My Sage, Inside the Drag Closet, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Paratalk Radio, Step into the Paranormal, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and more. Now you won't miss an episode. Remember, follow Facebook Live and YouTube Live. Make sure you subscribe and follow your favorite WLFE-DB radio shows. You can find our shows where you listen to your favorite podcasts, like Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and more. WLFE-DB Radio is looking for podcasts to join our family. You don't have to fit any strict genre. We're a plethora of shows. If you're looking to jump on a growing network, then contact us at WLFEDBradio@gmail.com.
Wow, Amazon Music just got a whole lot better. Your favorite shows from WLFE-DB Radio can now be found there. Yes, we are on Amazon Music, found under podcasts. Download the app, find podcasts, and search all of your favorite shows. Shows like Where's My Sage, Across the Pond, Everything Yet Nothing, Skeptical Help Bar, The Creepy Parlor, Just Cindy, and much more. Now you don't have to miss an episode ever. Amazon Music is WLFE-DB Radiofied.
More from WLFE-DB Radio Network after this.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Casey DeVille, the better half of DeVille Inc., Baltimore, Maryland. If you're ever in Baltimore, stop in and see me and Tony. Invisible Bree, 5920 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Give us a call if you're in the area, 410-400-9641, or look us up on the web at DeVilleInc.com. DeVille Inc., where we specialize in you.
Oh yeah,
Life just got sweeter now that WLFE DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab, and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
You're listening to WLFE DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
Yeah, welcome back. This is the Bipolar DM, Jason, and we're kind of having an off day today. We're just broadcasting a previous interview that I had set in reserve in case on a day like this where I didn't have a guest to have on the show or a last-minute cancellation. And so I want to show this video or this broadcast of my interview with Dr. Anthony Bean of Geek Therapeutics. And so in the previous one, we had went over his background, kind of how things got started. And in this one, we're going to talk with him a little bit about kind of what's coming down the pipe and the future of Geek Therapeutics and what he's doing.
Back, and thank you for tuning in. For those of you who are just now joining us, we have on the phone Dr. Tony Bean with Geek Therapeutics, and we are talking about Dungeons and Dragons and geekiness and all that kind of stuff in therapy, and melding those two worlds together so that we can bridge the gap of therapy for people who otherwise fall between the cracks and are lost. And so we're reaching out to this community using things they're familiar with, like Star Wars and Star Trek and Dungeons and Dragons and Dragon Ball Z and all those things to be able to therapeutically help people. And so a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. You have some dice coming out, you got books coming out. What's going on coming down the pipe on Geek Therapeutics, Tony?
So our dice are up and ready for people to get. We've opened up our online store. All of our books are available on there as well, and they're actually, if you want them in, usually a little bit less expensive than what you can find them on Amazon or directly from the publisher themselves, because we really want people to have the opportunity to get the materials to them. And so, to give an idea of what's coming down the line, we have about 4 new books that are going to probably be coming out this year. At least 4 new books. One on names, which is going to be great. Our DM journal, which is a really great Dungeon Master Game Master journal to help guide clinicians or people that want their games to be a little bit more focused and idealized in a behavioral rehearsal method. We have a villain book coming out. We also have how do teachers use video games in therapy to treat to basically bring about their students through a different curriculum, utilizing video games in a way that feels like it is going to help impact them and really drive a lot of content home. Okay,
that is awesome. Now, we got those coming up. Your book, actually, I want to talk about your book, and that is it was Geek Therapeutics, a clinician's guide to geek therapy. I'm going off my memory. Go ahead and let's go ahead and talk about the book that you have right now, and then what's coming down the pipe with that as well.
Sure. So the book that you're referring to is called Integrating Culture into Clinical Practice, the Clinician's Guide to Geek Therapy. And what that kind of entails is a way to really hone in on different aspects of geek culture. So in there we have D&D, we have video games, fandoms, we have all sorts of different types of geek culture, and we talk about how can we utilize these things in a manner that feels like the clients get it, but it also can give us windows into how we manage a lot of our our own personal self-worth, emotional content, and even our own mental health on a lot of levels. So, say, for instance, there's Matt Fellows in the book, and he's a fantastic person and a great writer. And his writing style really merged the idea of utilizing comic books and characters within it to understand how do we relate to these characters and why are we drawn to them. Say the Avengers. What about that is really grabbing us or giving us a feel of kind of what we need to do or where we need to go? And what we're going to be doing with that book is also releasing more for the general public of how to kind of use this type of stuff in your own work, own ideas of being able to be the best person you can potentially be, but also like have a bad day. Like there's a really cool thing that you can do with sometimes this fan fiction, something else, and also goes into our Geek Therapy card deck that we have out there as well, which I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
That's coming out in June, which is great for clinicians. It's also great for people just to purchase them themselves and utilize them in their own way. It goes across a whole bunch of different paradigms of geek culture that really gives us instructions and really mindfulness, solid techniques to understand what about something is the reason we gravitate towards it, but also how do we engage ourselves a little bit more when we need some time, when we have an issue, and how can we use those fandoms we like to just be better people.
Awesome. And talking about integrating Greek culture into therapeutic practice, you have a layman's version coming down the pipe too, don't you?
We do. That is still underway because, as you know, we're very busy over here.
Yes, a lot going on.
We are definitely engaging in that type of getting that book out too. I think one of the things we're trying to do, and it's going very well, is if you have a key cultural topic, we want to be the ones you want to speak to first, because we have the ability to get that out and to engage that in a lot of different ways.
Okay. Let's go ahead and shift gears away from all the Dungeons and Dragons. Let's just talk a little bit about mental health in general. The pandemic has affected so many people, me personally, and my own mental health. What has been the trend in the past 12 to 18 months as far as mental health is going, as far as clients go? They're presenting problems and stuff like that?
We've seen a pretty significant increase in anxiety, depression, and even some difficulties with those on the spectrum, which is where it kind of brings them into seeing us, because we know how to utilize those, basically the fandoms and everything they're doing to help them with those anxieties and depression symptomologies that they are really experiencing. The big thing that I kind of have been noticing a little bit more is people want that connection. They're looking for that connection in a way that makes them feel like they matter and they have something to really hone in on understanding who we really are as people, and that's what gravitates people to seeing this type of stuff and coming closer to it.
Yeah, and so what would your advice for those that are going through a mental health crisis right now? What is your advice? What do they need to do when they're in the middle of all this?
I think that they need to, if they're having a crisis or having something, they need to reach out to a mental health provider and find someone that's going to jive with them. So not everybody is going to be the right fit for you. And that's the number one thing, is you got to find the person that's going to be the best fit. And if you can find that, then it's going to go really well. But don't always settle down for your first one. You may have to try out a couple different therapists. That's kind of how it works.
Excellent. Thank you. And let's go ahead and as we tie this interview up, I want to go ahead and plug in how can people get a hold of you and Geek Therapeutics?
So people get a hold of us by just coming on to our Facebook page at Geek Therapeutics. They can email us at hello@geektherapeutics.com, and they can find us on pretty much all the social medias at Geek Therapeutics, and we encourage you to interact because we very much love doing this type of stuff. It's a whole lot of fun to
thank you so much. And everybody, that is geektherapeutics.com is the main website. You can also find them on Facebook under Geek Therapeutics at Think Geek Therapeutics. And yes, that's what we got for this interview with Tony. Tony, thank you so much for your time and especially having to do this again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Always happy to help.
All right. I'll have you just hold on just for a moment, and thank you again, everybody, for tuning in to this interview. As we return now, we go to
Okay. So that was my interview with Dr. Anthony Bean. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yes, that was my interview with Dr. Tony Bean. And it was a great interview. Like I had said in the during the interview, this was our second take because the first one got messed up. I didn't record it correctly. It was my first time using StreamYard in that manner, and as far as pre-recording an interview and stuff like that. And fortunately, my equipment also wasn't up to specs like I needed it to be. I mean, I'm still not top of the line where I'm at right now as far as with this laptop and everything, but I'm moving forward and getting into better equipment, and that's what the Patreon is for. That's what the merchandise is for. It's for helping me get that equipment that I need. Upgrading my laptop. My sound equipment, possibly even getting a soundboard. I don't know, but that's what all that goes to. And so really consider being a Patreon supporter. Again, my Patreon page is patreon.com/thebipolardm. And we got goodies for every level, starting with stickers at $5 a donation for a month, to buttons at $10, and then at $20 we have the t-shirt is available. So be sure to check that out. If you want to be a guest on our upcoming episode of one of our upcoming episodes of Bipolar Dragons, be sure to contact me, either message me below or to email me at thebipolardm@gmail.com. And we are booked up right now until our next opening is the 27th of June. So at the last Sunday of June. So if you want to come out and play, we would love to have you. We enjoy having guests. Originally we were going to just do guests from other shows and stuff like that, but we decided to go ahead and expand it out and let anybody who wants to be a guest on there, whether you have a radio show or a YouTube or it doesn't matter. We would like to have you on our game with playing Dungeons and Dragons. No experience is necessary. We have a lot of people that are just now learning how to play the game and starting off, so it's really player friendly. This version, this table, and we're accepting of everybody. So it doesn't matter what your background is, whether you're a civilian or a veteran, LGBTQ T+, or have a mental illness, or you're just completely normal, neuronormal. We would love to have you at our table. And so please go ahead and send me a little message below if you want to get in on this with the game. Okay, next is, I wanted to talk a little bit about Geek Therapy, and particularly the Game Master Therapeutic program. Well, not necessarily the program, but what it does. And what Dungeons and Dragons and play therapy, it's play therapy is play with a purpose. So you're using games, you're using imagination, you're using social skills, you're using all these different things in play therapy. And as the research started coming back on play therapy and the success of it, it was, some entrepreneurial doctors decided to, and counselors and therapists decided to, they saw the benefits and the potential benefits of Dungeons and Dragons in play therapy, and extending play therapy beyond just with little kids, but teenagers, adults, seniors, just about anybody who wants to get involved in this. And so this is play with a purpose. And when you're thinking about, especially when we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons and how that really works out, is everything has to have a little purpose behind it. From when you create your character, if you want to create them to be a mirror image of you, or completely the opposite, the ideal version of yourself that you would want to be, or even somebody that's just kind of somewhere right in between. So what you do in creating your character and choosing who your character is, can be very therapeutic and has a lot of potential in therapy as well. And then the adventures, of course, need to be designed with a therapeutic, some kind of therapy or purpose in mind, so that there's chances for encounters, especially social encounters, in which the party members would have to engage socially in dialogue with a non-player character or NPC, and so there's the potential there to act out these scenes, especially with somebody who's has a lot of social awkwardness, or has social anxiety or social anxiety disorder. And so this gives them a chance to, in a safe manner, in a safe space, act out what they would like to say if they are able to and had been in that position. And so you want to design these adventures when we're doing Dungeons and Dragons in that therapeutic setting, in such a way that there's a purpose behind everything, and that there's goals too. You got to have goals in therapy, and the start of every game and the start of every session, the start of every campaign, you need to sit down with your players and discuss with them, whether it's just one-on-one, a duet, or is it up to 6 players? What's the agreed upon rules that we're going to be playing by? What is it that we want to get out of this? What do we want to avoid? Hot topics that we don't want to touch upon. Things that we want to stay away from that might be possibly a trigger, or possibly steer towards that are a trigger, so that I can desensitize myself to and learn how to gain control over my trigger and my anxiety or my reaction. And so playing is really important, especially with how you play your player character or your PC in the therapeutic way, and that you are trying to play out your how I want to say this. You're trying to play out, what your goals are in therapy, what your social skills you like to work on, those skill sets and everything like that. And so when you're doing the playing as a character, when the rubber actually meets the road, then that gets really important to be mindful of, how you interact not only with the NPCs, but also with the other players within the party as well. You don't want to be a total asshole and then alienate half the party, because of that. And you got to put the banner up just because, yes, we might be offensive banner. So that's kind of how we want to do with Dungeons and Dragons in a therapeutic manner is that. And so that kind of leads right into one of my goals, or one of my missions, which is Dungeons and Dog Tags, in which we try and get boots on the ground, Dungeons and Dragons to boots on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan, and give those men and women over there a chance to step away from reality and indulge in a fantasy world where, at the end of the day, everybody comes home. And, in real life. And so, we're trying to get some people together on board with this. We're trying to get also our veterans group going, where we have some veterans playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, of course, these two groups are not being broadcast. This is something off the books that we're doing, just so that we can honor our men and women who fought for us, who are currently fighting for us. And so I want to do this for them by, playing Dungeons and Dragons with them and stuff like that. And so, what's one of my goals? My first goal, of course, is to play with some men and women that are currently serving in combat right now, or in a combat zone. And that's one of my greatest goals, is to do that. And in order to do that, though, I need to have somebody over there who's willing to help me organize a game. Whether they are a player themselves, or if it's a CEO or a first sergeant, or platoon sergeant, your squad leader. If you know some guys or girls out there who want to play Dungeons and Dragons or are interested in playing, let's try and get something together here. And I would love to do that. And then on the flip side, I want to work with Dungeons and Dog Tags with veterans, whether, wherever they're at, playing online. Again, so that I'm able to cast the widest net, so to speak. But playing Dungeons and Dragons with my fellow veterans, whatever branch of service that you have served in, I'd like to, have a game together to where we can engage in those hard topics like suicide and PTSD and the horrors of war and coming home and the horrors of coming home. That's one thing. It's one thing when you go into war, you can't prepare yourself fully for it, but you can do some prep work. Coming home, there is no preparation. Most of the time, especially with a lot of these guys and girls, they were discharged straight from the military and left the airport, left the bus station with their uniform and their duffel bag, and that was it. 2 days before they were in country. One day before they were processing out, and then they're left to the wolves, basically. Now the military has gotten a lot better in its transitions program to help transition soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guard, all of you, back to the civilian world, how to do resumes and stuff like that. But what about the psychological things, like the things that you've seen or things that you've done? And how do you live with those things when it's quiet, when the bullets aren't flying anymore and there's no more danger, and the house is empty because you've gone through your second divorce and you have a handle of Jack Daniels by your bed just so you can go to sleep at night because the nightmares come. Those are the things that we, as veterans, we need to take care of each other with. Because, the VA, God bless them, they're falling short. And Congress has screwed us over yet again every year, like they do every year. They take us for granted the sacrifices that we made and to continue to make for this country. And we are just pissed upon. And so as veterans, we need to reach out to each other and check our buddies and check their, make sure they've got, everything's good to go. And so, with Dungeons and Dog Tags, that's my hope, is that we have a chance to get some bonds together again in the forge of the battlefield. And so that we have somebody that can check in on us, or we can check in upon, to make sure everything's all right, and make sure that, that they know we got their six. And if you know anybody who is overseas, active duty, who might be on their way over there, please let me know. I would love to get the game together, and so let's see what we can do. In Dungeons and Bipolar Dragons, that's our regular game where we have a bunch of us talk show hosts gather together to play Dungeons and Dragons, and we bring in a guest player each week as well. Our current guest player, Joshua, I'm not going to butcher his last name, but he was a previous guest on this show just about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and he is unfortunately extremely ill today, and so we don't know what his condition is going to be tomorrow. I'd be very surprised if he makes it just because of how bad off he is today. He's going to need a day of recovery on top of the, being sick. And so, Joshua, dude, it's okay if you can't make it. We'll book you in another day. But then the following week, we're going to have Siobhan on board. She is one of my Patreon supporters. In fact, she is my first patron. And so she is going to be playing with us as well. And the following one after that, which I believe is the 20th, yes, Cindy, one of our players, her daughter and her husband want to come on board and play with us. So we're going to have them on. And then the 27th of June and following, we are wide open. So if you would love to play with us on Dungeons and Bipolar Dragons, just send me a message down below or email me at thebipolardm@gmail.com. And let's see. Military Podcast Day is coming up. Yes. So let's talk about that real quick. Let me turn this off so I can pull up a banner or pull up a. Okay. So starting, going on now until the end of this month, until the end of July, is registration for the Veteran Podcast Award. And there's actually at least 19 categories. I mean, I think they may have opened up a few more, but there's several categories that are open for the podcast. So a lot of winners that are available. We're filling up, doing really great with that. It's open to all branches, whether you're active duty, reserve, veteran, active duty military spouse, those Navy wives, Army wives, Marine wives, airman wives, even puddle pirate wives. It's if you have a podcast and are wanting to enter in, registration is going on until the end of July 2021. Then in August, starting August 7th until the 10th of September 2021, is the voting. So please support your veteran podcasters such as myself by going to www.veteranpodcastawards.com. And be sure to also check in on the awards when they're announced on the 5th of October 2021. So that is what we have there. Also, on another thing to check out is our other shows. This is not an updated list. We've actually since picked up a couple of different shows, but we have like Real Talk with Dom, Step Into the Paranormal, A Creepy Parlor, Unfiltered Talk with Bryce, Just Cindy, Meet the Authors, Metal Mayhem. We have all kinds of shows on there, and so be sure to check one of those out on WLFE-DB.com. And of course, to watch my show every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And let's go ahead and turn that off. Okay. We're going to end up probably be shutting this down about 5 minutes early, maybe a little bit. Maybe if I can stretch this out a little bit, maybe a little bit more. But this was one of my reserve items that I have for not when something happens or when, or not if something happens or if I can't broadcast, but when I can't broadcast, whether it's because of my illness or some other calamity. These are the kind of things I'm going to have in reserve. As I have a couple interviews that I've been stacking up, some of my pre-interviews that are what kind of behind the scenes stuff. I've been putting that away, and so those things will be available when it does come time that I can't broadcast. Again, check us out on Facebook at Bipolar DM. Check out our other Facebook pages like the Dungeons and Dog Tags, the Bipolar Dragons. Also, check out our group page, which is the Bipolar DM Nation. Free to sign up. All you have to do is just agree to be respectful, and that's all that we require of you. If you have anybody that you know of that can get us in touch with somebody overseas right now for Dungeons and Dog Tags, again, give me a shout out for that. If you're interested in finding out more about Geek Therapy and the Game Master, the Therapeutic Game Master, check out geektherapeutics.com, or look up Geek Therapeutics on Facebook, and you'll find their main page right there for that. All right. Patreon supporters, I'd love to have you if you want to be on my Patreon page, and be sure to check that out as patreon.com/bipolardm. And okay, so that is all I got going on for this show today. Thank you again for tuning in. This is the Bipolar DM, and remember, everybody, take your meds.
Thank you for listening to the Bipolar DM. They love sharing thoughts and ideas. See you next week, 7 p.m. Saturdays on WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows, and that makes for great talk radio. WLFE Digital Broadcast Network is on TV. You can watch all of our shows on WLFE-DB.com. Check out our channels: Paranormal View for all of your paranormal type shows, LGBTQ Friends for all of our LGBTQ shows, Variety Unlimited for all other shows. It runs 24/7 right on WLFE-DB.com. You'll even catch the lives, all in one place. Never miss an episode, past or future. WLFE-DB.com, where our shows are your shows.